Hey DJ, do you know what time of year it is?
It's the 4th of July!
Oh yeah! One of my favorite holidays. And do you know what I love doing the most during the 4th of July? Defeating Nazis. And we're going to watch one of the most Nazi defeatingest movies of all time, The Rocketeer.
Oh yeah!
We're a couple of guys who like to watch movies, cinema nerds who made it our duty to make a show where we break down, discuss, and review. We're the men who watch movies.
All right. A Rocketeer. So like I said, I want to talk about Rocketeer, not only because I feel like it has great patrioticness to it. Defeating Nazis. Which of course there's a lot of movies about defeating Nazis. We could easily have talked about
Captain America, the first Avenger.
Captain America, also by director Joe Johnston, who did this film, The Rocketeer. We could easily watch one of the Indiana Jones movies, but like I said, we want to pay tribute to the great Alan Arkin. So I thought, what a more perfect way to do that by talking about Rocketeer. Like I said, it has great, patrioticness to it, but also, we could talk about Alan Arkin in the same movie, so it's perfect. What do you think about The Rocketeer?
Oh, it's very, very awesome.
Yes, I agree. I don't know, what would you say is like one of your favorite aspects about it?
Oh, it's terrific. It's awesome. The action is awesome. The casting is awesome. The plot line is awesome. Timothy Dalton is
makes a great villain.
Actor.
Yeah, he makes a great villain. I love it.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think that like every aspect of this is great, which is such a shame because it didn't do well when it first released. It's one of those movies where it has to grow on people. I guess,
I don't follow the Rotten Tomatoes, so
yeah, me neither. But I don't know. It's just one of those movies that really didn't really gel with anybody when it first came out. But and there's with video and now with streaming and I think it's great because like a lot of people are against streaming and whatnot, but it gives things a second chance. So there's a lot of movies that come out. Not that streaming gave the Rocketeer a second chance, but that's for other movies. Streaming is certain movies like Second Life, and then back in the day, video, getting a movie from the video store was like a film's second chance at life, So eventually this movie, got the recognition it desered, but when it first came out, it didn't. It wasn't well received. But what are you laughing at?
I have no idea. Oh my god, I have no idea.
You hitting the? I didn't know. You hitting the bud there? No, just joking.
I have no idea. Something's so funny. I don't know why.
Yeah. But yeah, Joe. Like you were mentioning, there's so many things that went into making this film great. The director Joe Johnston. I mean, he's done so many great things. Yeah. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I didn't know he did Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. That's a great movie. Apparently, they were supposed to do a continuation of that, in streaming form. It's going to start Josh Gad as the son. What's his name? The one with the glasses.
Nick.
He was going to be. Apparently, Josh Gad was going to be Nick. And they were supposedly going to bring back Rick Moranis, but that reboot has been dead and buried. It's not happening. But I was kind of looking forward to that too. But yeah, anyway, not to get too off topic here. But yeah, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He did Jumanji. I love Jumanji. That was another movie that wasn't that well received. I mean, it did good, but it wasn't like a huge movie. But it's another one of this has the nostalgia factor. He did Captain America, the First Avenger, which he got that movie because of the Rocketeer. Very similar vibes to it. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I agree.
It has like that weird, not weird, but it has
awesomeness.
Like that. Yeah, I mean it's that World War II setting, but it has like that futuristic tech. It's kind of cool. So a perfect director to do that. Takes place in 1938 Los Angeles. I like it because it mentions a lot of the areas. We're near a lot of these areas that it mentions. Of course, we're not too far away from Hollywood and LA and all that stuff. And I mentioned Jenny, played by I can't think of it.
Jennifer Connelly.
Jennifer Connelly. My brain is not functioning too well, like usual. Jennifer Connelly. She lives in Redland, or her parents live in Redland, so in that all these areas are fairly local to us. So it's kind of neat. But yeah, it takes place in, like I said, 1938 Los Angeles. So it begins like they're like testing a new airplane. So apparently, main character Cliff Secord, he's a pilot. They aspire to win the nationals, so they race airplanes and whatnot. His friend Peavy, of course, played by the great Alan Arkin. He's like a mechanic, right?
Oh yeah, very much.
And so they're testing out their new plane, the GB. I want to call it the BG, but that's a singing group. Do 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 do. Anyway, not to get too off topic here. The GB, and of course, as fate would have it, at the same time, there's a group of mobsters being chased by the feds through their airfield. At first, the flight's going well, but then all of a sudden, here come the mobsters getting a shootout with the feds, the FBI, and whatnot, and some stray bullets hit the airplane. It crashes. Like this scene's pretty action. It starts off pretty action packed, man. We see there's like bullets that hit the plane. It starts spewing like oil and whatnot. It gets on the windshield. The plane starts sputtering and stalling, and then Cliff, he can't see, and he has to punch through the windshield of the airplane. And I like that scene. It's pretty epic. Of course, Cliff played by
Billy Campbell.
What else has he been in?
He was on an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Interesting.
He played an adventure, of course, and he was on the TV show called Frasier.
Oh, he was on Frasier. That's right. I don't remember what episode, but it sounds so familiar. He was also in a movie called Enough with Jennifer Lopez, where he played her abusive husband that she escapes from. It was tough watching that because, I think of Billy Campbell as the Rocketeer, and then to see him as like a villain is it's not an easy watch. But yeah, that was a pretty good movie though. But yeah, like I was saying, his plane gets shot, spewing oil and whatnot, and so unfortunately he crashes. The car that the mobsters are driving, it clips into the landing gear. It's a big mess, and then the plane crashes, and they have to get him out of it real quick before it blows up and whatnot. I don't think it blows up, but there's that great scene where like the mobster's truck crashes into like that gas. It's like a fuel truck, right? The big fireball. I love the spectacle of it all. But just before that, whatever they're being chased for, the mobsters take it out of the car and then put it inside an old airplane inside one of the hangars. They work at a place called like Bigelow Aeronautical, and it's owned by this guy named Bigelow. What's his first name?
I think it's
Deuce Bigelow. No, that's something
John
else.
Bigelow.
Something else entirely. But yeah, he's played by what's the actor's name?
John Polito.
Yes.
Who recently passed away.
Unfortunately, but he's been in a lot of stuff. But he played Frank Reynolds' brother on It's Always Sunny. That's one of the roles I remember him from. But yeah, anyway, not to get too off topic here. But yeah, So like I said, the mobsters are being chased by the FBI for this gadget that they have in the car, and they stole it. And so they hide it inside the airplane hangar inside of an old airplane, and they swap it out for a vacuum cleaner. And that same car is the one that crashed. That was holding the vacuum cleaner, crashed into that fuel truck. And so, the FBI recovers what they think is what they were looking for. And it turns out that the mobsters had stolen an experimental rocket pack created by Howard Hughes. And they bring the burned remains of the vacuum cleaner that they think is the rocket pack they bring it thinking that they recovered the charred bits of the experimental flying machine. And then of course, Cliff and Peavy are just in ruins because they're all their hard work. They spent all their money and time putting together the GB plane, and it's now it's just rubble on the airstrip. That's so sad, And then Bigelow, he's wanting to make him pay for it and whatnot. That guy's such a great character actor, though. I love seeing him and stuff. He has a great voice. He has like that gravelly voice and whatnot. It made him perfect to play Danny DeVito's brother in It's Always Sunny. But he's wanting him to pay for it because he's like, hey, you should have been flying safely. Even if it was the mobsters, who you crashed into, it's your job to fly safely. So he's trying to make him pay for it. So in order to recoup that money, he's making him do an old like a stunt flying bit where Cliff would dress like a clown and fly around, to recoup their losses and whatnot. They're hesitant to do it, but Cliff is like, we got to do this if we want to win nationals. We got to make our money back, And Peavy's like, no, don't do that. Because he wants to fly that old ass plane that's in that hangar. But Peavy's like, that thing's a death trap. You can't fly that thing. And he's like, oh, I can fly. What did he say? He's like, I forget what he says. He's like, I could fly a toaster if it had wings or something. I don't know, something to that effect. He didn't say toaster necessarily, but it just proves how great a pilot Cliff Secord is. I mean, what a great character Cliff Secord is, though. He just like, I don't know. I just love like the personality. Like he's not like the hero that can do it all, but he has a lot of confidence. I don't know. What do you think about that character?
It's awesome.
Because he does make mistakes throughout the movie, and we see that a few times.
He does, but he is a heroic, hero.
But he has that air about him that just makes you want to be, he's such a good character. That it's like he's not perfect, but he tries his best, and he has like I don't know, he has like that good quality to him. And then I love the pairing with Alan Arkin's Peavy. I don't know, it's very reminiscent of like a partnership that you would see with like Doc and Marty or something like that. They have like that very just famous, like we've barely been introduced to them, but they have great chemistry together, and you kind of get their friendship. I don't know if you got that same vibe. I kind of got that same kind of like Doc and Marty vibe from them. What do you think about that?
Very, very much. It's very awesome. He has a Doc and Marty vibe. So awesome. So terrific.
I don't know. It just, to me, that, at least in my opinion, that's the kind of vibe I get. Because he's like the older kind of technically experienced dude, and then Cliff Secord is like the younger guy who's always ready to get into adventure and just kind of jump out there and whatnot and get into trouble. So I don't know. I like the pairing. The pairing is great. But yeah, I like the pairing together. It's very great. Eventually, the feds go back to Howard Hughes and inform him that his rocket pack, which the code name is X3, has been destroyed, and they're wanting him to rebuild it because initially Howard Hughes built it, just because he's a lover of aviation. He wanted to create it just to see if he can create it, but of course,
he is a billionaire.
Yeah, and then the government got involved, and they wanted him to create it for military application, which is like the typical thing, you see.
It kind of got like a little bit of Tony Stark vibes.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what Stan Lee modeled Tony Stark after, was Howard Hughes. I mean, in the comic books, he even has like the Tony Stark. He doesn't have a goatee; he has like the Howard Hughes mustache. It wasn't until later he adopted the goatee. I don't know if it was after or before Robert Downey Jr.'s interpretation of him, but in the OG comic books, Tony Stark had like the Howard Hughes mustache. And then of course they modeled Howard Stark is named Howard because of Howard Hughes, also Tony's dad. But then not to get too off topic. But yeah, so they inform Howard Hughes, and they're pushing him to make another one. He's like, no, I'm not doing it. All you guys want to do is weaponize everything, and the dream is dead, guys. He's like, and tell him Howard Hughes said so. And he throws he had like a booklet showing like for like the World's Fair where it showed like the rocket, someone flying on the rocket pack on the cover, and he throws it into flames. I love the dramaticness of it all, but and even and then I forget the actor's name, but he's another character actor. He did a great job at playing Howard Hughes.
Oh, Terry O'Quinn?
Yes. Wasn't he? He's been in a bunch of stuff, right? Wasn't he in like Lost?
Oh yeah, he was in Lost. He was in an episode of The X-Files.
Yeah.
He was on an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
You know, I have never seen Lost, and I'm kind of glad 'cause I heard bad things about the ending of it. But nah, not to get too off topic here. But yeah, I love his interpretation of Howard Hughes. I feel like it's pretty grounded. A lot of times you see people play famous characters or famous real life people, and sometimes they play it like a cartoon or a caricature, but he plays it really straight. Like he makes you believe that this could be like the real guy, even though it's not. But yeah, so he refuses to build it. But yeah, like I mentioned, Bigelow, he wants Cliff and Peavy to pay for the damages and whatnot, so they have to do that old clown act. So there's one point where Cliff, he's getting into the old ass plane that they have to fly for the clown act. And then that's when he discovers the rocket pack, hid it inside. They put it inside of like Peavy's old duffel bag or whatever. Thus begins our adventure. So he sits down in the seat. He's like, "Ow, what the heck is this?" And then they open it up. They find this big metal monstrosity inside of Peavy's duffel bag. They don't know what it is at first, but then slowly they realize that they have something special in their hands. At one point, I think Cliff notices like the leather straps on it, and he puts it on and clicks it in place. I love that dramatic shot where it's he clips the belt onto himself, and then he realizes it's some kind of flying machine. And eventually they do that scene where they test. I like that scene where they go to the like the airfield. It's like a pilot school, right? And then they test out the rocket pack. They like strap it to like a statue of a lucky.
I think it's not the right decision at all.
Well, they had to test it out. I mean, because initially Cliff wanted to test it out on himself, but Peavy convinced him that it's probably safer to test it out on something that's not human or not living. So they strap it to the Lucky Lindy statue. It was Lucky Lindy Flying School, and so they actually saw off the statue. And then they put the rocket pack on it, and they put it down, like they tie it with like a chain on a stake and everything that was like flying around. I don't know how they intended to get it back down. That was kind of a bad idea. But
pretty much.
And then it gets loose and it starts flying. Luckily, I mean, it could have gone anywhere in the world. I don't know. That thing could have gone, I don't know. Like Peavy says, it's probably like halfway, to Kansas. But luckily it does a loop-de-loop back to them and ends up crashing nearby in the ground. And then it has like a big chunk taken out of the statue's head, and that's where they get the idea that they should come up with like a helmet, right? But that was a fun scene, and I love a lot of the visuals in this too. I mean, that's at a time where they weren't doing CGI. What year was this? 1990, I think.
1991.
So it was like very, they still weren't doing CGI, so it's still like all optical effects. But I think a lot of them are achieved pretty well, right? I mean, I feel like a lot of the visuals hold up. What do you think?
Yep, the visuals hold very, very well.
There's very few shots where I'm like, ugh, that's terrible. But I mean, there's some, but like for the most part, they're done really well. And of course, Joe Johnston. I mean, he's no novice to the special effects world. Of course, he got his start doing special effects for Star Wars. I mean, he created the Boba Fett. And he did a lot of special effects for like Raiders, and he did like special effects for Star Wars, and I mean, yeah. So he's well versed in that world. So it's no surprise that he got people competent enough to make a good special effects film. So that that probably did some the movie really good. And then later on we see the head of the pack retrieval operation. So the mobsters that were trying to get the rocket pack from the government, they're all tied to the Valentine crew, which is the head of it is Eddie Valentine, played by the great
Paul Sorvino. Rest
in peace. He's like a typical mobster guy. I don't know if this is rumors, but I heard that originally their idea was to get Joe Pesci to play Eddie Valentine, but Paul Sorvino plays it perfectly. I can't imagine anyone else as Eddie Valentine. So we see Eddie Valentine, the head of the the whole operation to nab the rocket pack, and he's reporting back to actor Neville Sinclair. So apparently this actor Neville Sinclair, he wants the rocket pack for some reason, and Eddie Valentine, he's like confounded by what an actor wants with a rocket pack. But later on, we'll find out why. But in the meantime, Eddie is pissed because all he knows is that he's wasting a lot of his time. Some of his men have died for this cause, and he doesn't even know why. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. So he wants 3 times the money. And in the meantime, we see Neville Sinclair call up a guy named Lothar to deal with the situation.
Big, giant guy.
Yeah. He's played by a famous, he's like a character actor. I guess you would call him a character actor, but his name is, they call him Tiny Ron, which is an ironic name because he's like a huge guy. He's super tall. I don't know if he's normally just like a stunt guy or whatnot. But he's been all over. He's done like Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls. He played like one of the animal poachers, and he was in the Naked Gun series as that really tall guy named Al, whose face you never see because he's so tall. He's always out of frame. But he's been in a bunch of stuff. So he plays the character of Lothar. He's actually modeled after an old Hollywood actor, Rondo Hatton. So if anyone wants to look it up, he looks exactly like the character of Lothar. Very interesting features and whatnot. So they took the features off that actor and kind of made a prosthetic for his face, for Tiny Ron's face, and then that's what they used for that movie. So it's a very interesting choice to actually pick, an actual actor's image. I mean, it's very, very like almost pretty much exactly that actor's look. But yeah, so that's who they modeled it after. And then one of the next characters that we meet is Jenny Blake, played by Jennifer Connelly. Originally in the comic books, do you know what the character's name was?
I have no idea.
So the character's name was Betty Page. There was a famous model back in the day named Betty Page, and the creator of the comic book used that person's name, for the character. I believe that the creator of the comic book actually was friends with the real Betty Page, and so he used the name Betty Page and the similar likeness for the character in the Rocketeer comic book. But when it came time to make the movie, Betty Page didn't want her name used as the character in the film, so they changed it to Jenny Blake, which is, I feel like now listening to it, it's kind of similar. Betty Page, Jenny Blake has a similar kind of ring to it. Played by the great Jennifer Connelly. She has like a very similar look, but it's not like the iconic Betty Page.
She's very young
look, but yeah, she has like the same kind of feel. Yeah, she's very young in this movie. I don't know if, what else she'd been in before this, but the one that I know of is of course the Labyrinth, with the great David Bowie. But I don't know anything in between that. I'm not too versed on her catalog of movies, but this is very early in her career. But yeah, she's a great character. Of course, the girlfriend of Cliff Secord. She's like she's trying to get her foot in the door as an actress, mostly doing a lot of background work and stuff like that in this movie. Of course, she's talking with Cliff, and he tells Jenny that the GB flight went okay because she's asking about it, and he mentions nothing of the crash that happened and all the mayhem that ensued and whatnot. Because I don't know if he's embarrassed or whatnot. I don't know why he doesn't tell her, but he decides to leave that out of the conversation for some reason. Then they're talking about going to the movies. She's a big fan of Neville Sinclair, the actor. He wants to see a Cagney movie. James Cagney, the famous actor. But she wants to see Wings of Honor, which was teased earlier. I don't know if you noticed that. I just noticed that while we were rewatching it earlier. There's a Wings of Honor billboard near the testing strip where they were flying the GB and when the accident happened. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't notice it, but
yeah, there's a lot of little cool foreshadowing in this movie. It was a neat billboard. It had like a plane. I think it had like a little spinning prop too. It was a neat poster. I just happened to notice that. for the first time. I don't know, I didn't notice that before. But yeah, it was a neat little reference to the future of the movie. But I thought that was kind of cool. So she wants to see the Neville Sinclair movie, and then Cliff, he's just kind of poo-pooing it. He's like, "Oh, I don't like Neville Sinclair. He's so blah." He's like, "You never see Cagney walking around in his slippers and in his underwear or whatever." I forget what he says, in his big mansion or something. I don't know.
Penthouse.
Oh, in his penthouse. But yeah, he's more of a Cagney man. So yeah, he's not wanting to see it, but he goes to see it for her sake. And the whole time afterwards, he's like crapping on the movie. Talking about how ridiculous it was, because apparently, like, I guess, like, the end of the movie was like, it was like a World War I movie, and I guess the movie ended with him like dropping a bottle of champagne on the enemies or something like that. And they're like, he was like talking about how ridiculous that was, and everyone in the diner that they go to is like, where the heck did he get a bottle of champagne or a bottle of wine? Or I forget what it was. They didn't have any liquor stores in the front. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. But she was, she's like, it was just a sign of chivalry and blah blah blah. But yeah, there, you could tell he's not a fan of Neville Sinclair, which kind of sets up the whole plot even further. Back at the hospital where they're holding the mobster that hid the rocket pack at the airfield, we see that he's in a full body cast essentially, and Lothar, he shows up there trying to get information where he left the pack at, because Lothar is going to bring it back to Neville. So he sneaks in. I don't know. He's a huge guy, but apparently he snuck in like on the ledge, and to avoid detection, because they have like since it's such a high profile thing involving like the FBI and whatnot. There's a police officer there guarding the room and whatnot. So I guess Lothar, he snuck on the ledge, got into the window, and he's interrogating him. Where's the rocket?
The rocket.
Where is it? You could tell he's like struggling to talk through that thick prosthetic mask he has on. But yeah, I like that creepy voice that he has. But he's trying to interrogate him to find out where the rocket is, and eventually he tells him, that he left it in an old plane at the airfield and whatnot. And then after he gets the information, he disposes of him because he doesn't need it anymore. So I think he essentially he doesn't have any weapons on him. I think he's just so strong he crushes him to death or something.
Yeah, and the nurse and the officer thought that they were watching the TV series.
It
actually happened, which
I found
it kind of weird.
Yeah, because they're on the radio. They're listening to the radio, and then they thought the screaming was coming from the radio, and so you hear them. They're like laughing at the radio program that they're listening to, and it sounds like the screams of terror are coming from the radio, and then all of a sudden the program ends, and then all of a sudden they still hear the screaming, and they realize it's coming from the hospital room, so they rush in there, and then you see the mobster crumpled in his bed like he's been crushed, and the nurse screams, and then the police officer's looking all around. He sees the open window, but he doesn't see anyone around, and then you see these huge feet standing on the ledge. I'm surprised he fit on that ledge.
For a big guy, he is strong.
He's pretty spry for a big guy. But yeah, so he's been killed. So we got information about the airfield. So, he's Lothar's on his way to retrieve the rocket pack from Bigelow Aeronautical. So then after Jenny and Cliff see the movie, they go back to this. It's like a local diner to the area where all the pilots go and whatnot. It's actually modeled after a real diner around that same time period, where it's shaped like a bulldog. I always thought that was so cool. What do you think about that diner?
That looked very, very interesting.
Yeah, I would have loved to have visited it back then. I think they recreated a version of it. I think it's at the Peterson Automotive Museum or something like that. From what I can recollect, but that would have been cool to see like the OG one that used to exist, but I think it got destroyed through time and whatnot. But that would have been cool to see that. But yeah, so they go to it's like a bulldog cafe, and it's funny, you're first introduced to it. You see an actual bulldog walking around, and then it cuts to him walking to the bulldog cafe. It's a big old bulldog building with like a pipe in his mouth or something like that. I think it's so cool. But they go to have dinner there, and then Jenny, she's like, "Do we have to come here every night? Like, can we go to something fancy like a club?" She wants to go to the South Seas Club, and Cliff, he's not a fancy guy. He's just a average schmuck pilot dude. Doesn't have a lot of money, and he's not living the lifestyle that Jenny wants to lead. And he's over there making fun of the movie that she likes, and there's a little bit of tension there at first. But they're joking about the movie and about this. Apparently, there's a scene at the end of the movie with Neville Sinclair. It's like a war movie, I think, like World War One. I'm assuming because World War II hadn't broken out, for the United States yet. So he's talking about how Neville Sinclair flew over the enemies and dropped a bottle of like champagne on him or something like that. They're making fun of that, and then there's some like old war vets from World War One in the diner saying, "Hey, they never had a liquor store on the front. Where did you get that from?" And she's like, "It's not about that. It's about the symbolism of it all, And then one of the old vets in there, an old pilot guy named Malcolm, he lets it slip by accident that that the GB crashed on the airfield, and she feels hurt that Cliff didn't mention it to her, because she feels like as her boyfriend, she should hear these kind of things from him. She felt embarrassed that she was left out of the loop and whatnot. And so eventually she leaves frustrated. I don't know what he thinks. She thinks he should have told her, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't. I don't know why he felt the need to keep it from her, but maybe he was embarrassed. I don't know. I think he just doesn't want to seem like a schmuck, but he's kind of schmuckish. But that sometimes schmucks make the best heroes, as we will find out. But yeah, and then eventually Cliff goes back to Peavy's place, and he's talking about it. I like that camaraderie though that they have, because he's talking to Cliff about his girl troubles with Peavy, and he's like, "Hey, you know what? Just to know, if you guys split up, it's gonna be your fault, man." He's like, "You need to make it up to that girl." And he's like, "Oh, what do you know? You haven't dated since like 1920 something." and then I like that part where he's like remembering back. Oh yeah, there was no need to date anyone else after her. I like that scene. It's such a great pair of characters. What do you think? Do you like them? Do you like those two characters together?
Oh yeah, Jennifer Connelly, Bill Campbell, and Alan Arkin, and of course Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, that's such a great cast. But eventually we see Neville Sinclair on the set.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is the next day. Neville Sinclair's on a set of some kind of like swashbuckler movie. This is his next film, and then Jenny and a friend of hers, they got a part as some background characters. And Cliff, he's feeling bad that he left Jenny out of the loop, so he wants to inform Jenny that they might have a chance at making some actual money because of the rocket pack that they found. So he goes to inform her about it. Unfortunately, he's a dope, and he decides to crash the set literally while he's looking for her. He happens to be behind the set that's currently filming, and he knocks over like the walls of the set. I don't know what he's doing, but he puts his hand on it, and it like all the walls come tumbling down, and it's chaos.
And of course, Timothy Dalton's line was, "It's never been said that Neville Sinclair brought down the house."
Oh yeah. I thought that was funny. He's like, "I guess it's never been said that Neville Sinclair had failed to bring down the house," or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, the whole scene was pretty funny. I like that part where it's like I don't know if it's like the director's niece or something, or like she gets that part of like the leading lady, and she like really sucks at acting, and so she has to be like heavily coached. And then like there's a part where she's like, "Oh, my prince," because like he's like drinking from like a goblet. Yeah, because Neville Sinclair's drinking from like a goblet or something. She's like, "Oh, my prince, would you drink of my lips as deeply?" And then the director's like, "Oh my God, what did I get myself into?" And he's like, "You need to act, but you need to act like you're not acting. Acting is something like that." Or he's like, "Acting is acting like you're not acting." And so she does it a second time, but it turns out okay. She's able to get the line out more naturally. But then that's when this freaking set collapses in on itself, and then Cliff is back there. I'm looking for Jenny Blake. And then unfortunately, during all the commotion, Neville Sinclair accidentally stabs his co-star and all that, and he has to go to the hospital. And then Neville's pissed, so he has Jenny fired. But then he overhears Cliff talking about the rocket. And then that gets his mind going. He's saying maybe I need to catch this girl before she leaves. So he catches up to Jenny and tries to schmooze her, saying, "Oh, I'm sorry I had you fired, but maybe that was a little bit too harsh. Perhaps And he tries to woo her in order to get more information out of her. He offers to take her to dinner and to give her a bigger role in the movie, and
as the Saxon princess.
Yeah, so he's trying to get information about that rocket. Because he has plans for that rocket, which will be revealed.
Yep, very, very sinister plans, but Timothy Dalton is a very, very awesome actor.
Yes. Yeah. So at this point, Jenny, she doesn't know it, but her favorite actor is not a good guy, but she's being wooed by him. But right now, it's she's on the outs with her boyfriend because he's a big klutz and he hasn't been living up to expectations lately. Now she's got her favorite actor seeking her attention, so a lot of bad stuff going on. But rights will be wronged. Eventually, Peavy finishes. He ends up creating a helmet because earlier, remember, the Lucky Lindy statue crashed and cracked its head. So they're like, "We're gonna need to make you a helmet if you're gonna fly in this thing." And then so he ends up creating a helmet. I don't know what the heck it was. Some kind of brass thing, a bronze thing. I don't know. It was some kind of thing that he had, and he repurposed it into a helmet. It's this crazy it's iconic looking, of course, but it has this crazy fin on it and those bubble lenses for the eyes. It's so cool looking. Straight out of the comic book. And then later on, of course, we see Cliff. He goes to do that clown show to make up the money. So hopefully they can get into nationals, and hopefully they can get some money to fix up the plane and whatnot. But when he arrives, he sees his plane taken off. Like, what the heck? This is like the first bit of action scene we get to see of the Rocketeer as the titular character. It's exciting. I love the scene. Although I feel like it's one of those things where I feel like some of the issues were caused by the hero himself, but we'll get into that in a second. So like I said, Cliff rides up. He sees his plane taken off. And then at first they think Cliff's up there, and then they see the plane is flying weird, and then like, what the heck is Cliff doing? Because there's some planes flying at the same time that Cliff's plane goes up, and they're racing, and then they're thinking, hey, Cliff's going pretty close to those racing lanes. He better be careful. And then Cliff walks up, and then they realize that he's not on the plane. Like, oh shoot, it must be Malcolm, the old veteran guy that was at the diner. And they're like, man, he's gonna get himself killed up there. What the heck? He's getting too close to those racing lanes. So that's when Cliff gets the idea. I need to go save his ass. And so this is the first time we see him don the rocket pack. And now that the helmet's ready, he's all suited up. He puts on it, the helmet for the first time. He asks Peavy how he looks, and he's like, "You look like a hood ornament." But I love that running gag that they have in the movie, where every time that Cliff activates the rocket pack, Peavy gets blown away like a freaking tumbleweed. I think it's hilarious. But if you notice, every time like he's near him and that happens, he gets like blown away like a rag doll. It's pretty funny. But yeah, I love that scene where he starts it up for the first time. He goes up in the air, and then what's cool about the helmet, it like acts like a rudder. So when he turns his head, it helps him change directions and whatnot. I think that's so cool. But he goes up in an attempt to save Malcolm. But in an attempt to do so, like I said, he caused some of the issues with his attempted heroism. He ends up crashing into the bottom of the plane. At first, yeah, I think his mission was to fly up to Malcolm But he ended up crashing right through the bottom of the plane, spooking him. And also it loosened like the control stick, and it hit Malcolm in the head, knocked him out. So now you got an unconscious pilot in the air with a damaged plane, which Cliff caused a little bit. So now he's really got to save him. And at first, he's having a little bit of trouble navigating through the air, and he's learning as he goes. This mysterious machine. He doesn't know where it came from, but he's trying to figure everything out. He's not doing good at first, but eventually he gets the hang of it. But some of the fun of it is watching him try and work out all the kinks. At one point, the engine shuts off, and then he like tumbles through the clouds, and you see I like that part where he falls through the clouds, and you see like that burst of flame right underneath the clouds, and he flies back up, and eventually he gets back up to Malcolm, and he saves him from the plane just before it crashes and whatnot. But I like that part where Bigelow, of course he's like the greedy money guy. And there's the announcer's like, everybody, there's an emergency. Please evacuate the area. And he's like, no. What are you doing? It's all part of the show, folks. And he's trying to keep everyone there, even though there's like real danger. He's a true, money-making man. But luckily, the Rocketeer saves the day, and everyone's going ape shit because they just saw this guy flying without an airplane. And of course, all the there's media there, and they're going nuts trying to get to a telephone so they can call the newspaper. But hey, there's a flying man that saved a guy from an airplane crash. It's a whole media blitz. Everyone's going nuts. And so that's when we see the people interviewing Bigelow, and he comes up with the name Rocketeer. Of course, that's not the first name he comes up with, but.
Comes up with Rocket Man.
Yeah, he comes up with some other names, and they're like, that name sucks. What else do you got? Kind of reminds me of that scene. Of course, this is before this, but it reminds me of that scene from Spider-Man where they're trying to name the Doc Ock, and then what's his name? Hoffman comes up. Hey, how about Doc Ock? He's like, that sucks. Doctor Strange. It's taken. But anyway, not to get too off topic. So they come up with the name the Rocketeer. And then I like that scene after he's done saving Malcolm. When he goes on like a little mini montage, he's like flying around, kind of enjoying the rocket pack for a bit. He like flies up in the air, and then you see him flying next to like an airplane that's carrying passengers. And then he looks over to them, and then he gives them like a salute, but unfortunately, like his glove has the button attached to it that activates the rocket pack. So when he gives him a salute, like he accidentally shuts it off, and he goes tumbling through the clouds and whatnot. He has to regain altitude, and he's like skimming across the land. But back to the airplane, I thought that when I first saw it, I thought that the airplane stewardess was Jamie Lee Curtis, but I checked the IMDb, it's not her. But I don't know. To me, it looked like her. I don't know if anyone agrees with that. Do you think it looked like her?
Kind of.
I thought it was her, but I was wrong. But yeah, then he goes tumbling down and almost hits the ground, and he's like skimming across. And then there's a part where he's going through a field. He like ends up crashing through some laundry. He gets like a sheet stuck on his head, and he quickly throws it off. And he's like crashing through some farmer's field. You see like the corn being shot up in the air. And it's funny. There's these two guys, and one of them is like, man, there's big gophers. Not the guy who says big gophers, but the other guy, that's Tiny Ron. The guy who plays Lothar.
That's him?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he has a little cameo in the movie where he's not wearing the Lothar makeup. I just learned that like a few minutes ago. It was funny. I got to rewatch that now and look for that. But yeah. And then eventually he crashes in some like swampy area, and then PV meets up with him. He's been chasing him in his truck. He finally catches up to him. He's like, man, you crazy? You're going to get yourself killed. And then he's like, I like it. And then eventually they try to get out of there because the feds are chasing after them because they want that pack. So PV, he's trying to go, but his like car's stalled. He's like, PV, put it in neutral. And then so he gets up, he gets up on the back of the truck, and then he turns on his pack, and he's like pushing the freaking truck rocket powered truck. That sounds awesome. I thought that was brilliant. Yeah. Then finally it gets out that the pack is still out there, and then Howard Hughes decides, let me investigate this, because you guys said the thing was blown up. So he looks at the blown up rocket pack they supposedly retrieved. It turns out it was just a destroyed vacuum cleaner that they mistook for the pack. Because back at the airfield at the beginning of the movie, the mobsters switched out the rocket pack for a vacuum cleaner. So now after Cliff's big stunt, everyone knows that the rocket pack's out there. So now the FBI and the mob are looking for the rocket pack. So at some point, Neville sends Lothar to Bigelow to get some information about where he can find the flying rocket man, because they want to find this pack, because they have some plans for it. So unfortunately, we find that when the FBI goes to investigate Bigelow to see, because the FBI is also interested to get it back to Howard Hughes and whatnot. So when they go to Bigelow's to see if they can find out who the Rocket Man is, who the Rocketeer is, they find the place, turned upside down, and then they find Bigelow dead in his chair. So Lothar got there first, but they see on a notepad he wrote an address, what happens to be PV's address, and so that's not good. So they quickly make their way over there. At the same time, we see Lothar. It cuts over to PV's place. He has the note in his hand, because they see the impression of the note on the notepad. And so they're able to make out the address on that. But then it cuts to, they did a perfect fade shot to the actual note in Lothar's huge hand. And he's reading the address. And I forget the address, and he crushes it in his hand, and he walks over to PV's house. And at the same time, Cliff shows up looking for PV, because he knows shit's going to go down.
There's a big brawl.
Yeah, eventually. Luckily, he got there around the same time Lothar did. So PV and Cliff are fending off Lothar. They're doing their best, but he's a big guy and he can take some hits, man. But then around the same time, the FBI finally shows up. Everything just happens all at once. It's crazy. Then Lothar realizes the jig is up. So he pulls out 2 pistols and starts firing through the door, taking out one of the feds. And so the FBI is like, screw it. They freaking open fire on poor PV's house, obliterating the dang thing. Bullets flying everywhere. Lothar just bounces. He grabs. He couldn't find the pack, which was disguised as a lamp. So he grabs the next best thing. He grabs PV's blueprints that he made of the pack. Hightails it out of there, scared out of his mind. He may be strong, but he can't stop a bullet. And so he's out of there. And then luckily PV and Cliff, they make it out by the skin of their teeth. But a bullet had ricocheted and hit the pack, putting a hole in it. So they hightail it out of there. They take refuge at the diner. They're hiding in the attic and whatnot. But then unfortunately, Cliff, he's wanting to find out where Jenny is. He's worried about her. Turns out she's on a date with Neville Sinclair at the South Seas Club. But then the mobsters show up at the diner because they're looking for Jenny, because they found her photo, because Cliff would always keep a photo on the plane that he's flying of her, and they find her photo. They figure maybe if they find her, they could link her to the person who found the rocket pack. And so they're looking for her and whatnot. And that's when they get information that Neville is going on a date with this girl. And so they're thinking that maybe Neville is double-crossing Eddie Valentine and whatnot. So everyone's suspicious of everybody. And so the mobsters are waiting around to see if either Cliff or the lady in the photo show up. They call her Lady Luck. I don't think they didn't know her name and whatnot. So there's this, I love that, there's that very tense scene where they're waiting it out, trying to ask everyone, if they know a guy named Cliff. And of course, they don't know what he looks like. He's sitting right there. and no one wants to say anything. So they start trashing the place. That made me mad. They start smashing the coffee pots, throwing around everything. These guys shoots the radio and whatnot. Then eventually, that's when they get word about Neville on a date with Lady Luck. So eventually they leave. A couple of the mobsters leave, and then two of them stick around to see if Cliff shows up. And then one of them's looking on the wall, and then eventually he gets to there's like a wall of photographs, and then eventually he gets to a photo of Jenny and Cliff, and that's when you see Cliff. He realizes that, oh no, the kind of, he's going to be given up. So they have to make a quick decision. He looks over at PV, and everyone in the room decides that now it's either now or never. They're gonna be in some serious trouble when they figure out, when they put two and two together. So they everyone springs into action, and they subdue the two mobsters. I thought that was a great scene. It was a little bit of tension there.
It was very, very good, actually. But, very good scene.
Yeah, luckily they subdue him and whatnot, and then so Cliff, he goes off to the South Seas Club with the Rocket Pack, because he's got to meet up with Jenny because he knows that she's in trouble. And PV's hesitant for him to go, but he's got to do what he's got to do. And then, but just before he takes off, there's a little more foreshadowing for the future in the towards the end of the movie. He realizes that the pack got nicked by one of the bullets, so he sees it's dripping fuel everywhere, and so he's like, "Oh no, wait! And if you had taken off, you would have blown up." He's like, "I got to fix this," and he's like, "It's going to take a few hours." He's like, "I don't have a few hours," so he's like, "Here, let me try this," and he takes the gum because he put the gum on his pack for good luck, because apparently
Beeman's gum.
Beeman's gum is like a good luck gum for pilots. So he takes the gum that was stuck on his pack, and he puts it over the bullet hole to keep it from leaking. It's just a temporary fix so he can make it safely. He takes off to save Jenny, and then you see a mysterious hand with a gun stop him. And so we're left in a little bit of suspense there. But I love that whole scene at the South Seas Club when Cliff shows up, and he disguises himself as like a busboy or whatever. That's pretty funny, and he's bringing him over soup, and then he overhears Jenny talking about him, and then she realizes it's him. She starts like playing it up even more. Oh yeah, he's a bum and blah blah blah. I forget exactly what she said, but she's talking about him, and then he slips a note in her soup, letting her know that he needs to talk with her, and he's explaining everything, telling her the whole situation about how. Neville's just after her because he wants to get to the pack, and then everyone's looking for her. The mob's looking for her. She needs to get out before she gets killed. And he's like, "Here's the big shocker. I'm the Rocketeer." And then she's like,
"What?"
No, she didn't say that. She didn't say. She wasn't like, "Say what?" No, she said, "The Rocka who?" He's like, "Oh, come on, Jenny. You don't read the papers." This is a time where news didn't get around as easily. You didn't have access to news on your phone. It was like if you didn't read the paper that day, you don't know what's going on. So she was totally like, "I don't know what you're talking about." He's like, "Anyway, you need to get out, go with your parents in Redlands." She heads off, and then Neville eventually sees like the note floating in her soup, so he's aware that she's aware, and everything's just going nuts. And eventually, Lothar shows up, and shit goes down. And then Cliff goes to retrieve his rocket pack. He hid it inside a laundry room, so he changes out of his service person wear. And then he goes and grabs the rocket pack. He starts mass chaos. He starts like the room on fire with his rocket pack. I like that scene where he's like flying around the dining tables, and the tables are combusting, and he eventually ends up like starting the band shell on fire, and he accidentally lands on that weird it was like a snail.
He was right on the snail
ice sculpture, and then he gets caught by a giant net. The Neville, he shoots because like everything's like a underwater theme, and so like he shoots like this decorative fish net on the wall, and it falls down on him and captures him, and eventually Jenny sees that stuff's going down, so she returns to try and help him. She actually knocks what's his name? I think was it Lothar? I think she knocks Lothar on the head with some kind of vase or something, right?
Yeah.
What's it with ladies in movies? That's like the number one thing they have them do is like knock someone on the head with something. I noticed that in like a lot of movies, like they don't like get into fights, but they'll like hit someone over the head. That's like a big thing. Like a lot of the Indiana Jones scenes, like
it is cool.
Marion always like that's her big thing. She always like knocks someone over the head with like something, like with a frying pan or something, or a vase or something. But yeah, so she knocks Lothar over the head with some kind of like thing, knocks him out. But then eventually Neville gets a hold of her and then chloroforms her and kidnaps her, takes her back to his place. Rocketeer, he gets out of Dodge. I think he thinks Jenny is long gone by then. I don't think he realized that she came back. So he flies out of the skylight, crashes through the thing like Superman, out of the South Seas Club. We cut to Neville Sinclair's house. We see Jenny awakening from her drugging. Then she catches like a glimpse of Neville, like in the distance, right? And then like he's like emerging from like a secret room. That'd be like creepy. He's like coming from like his bookcase, right?
Yep, and it's filled with.
Not yet. Let's not spoil it yet. We'll get there in a second. But he has some secrets in that crazy closet of his, or whatever room.
Revealed.
Yes. But yeah, and then so she sees him coming, so she quickly like pretends like she's back asleep, and then he's the smelling salts, and she's like, whoa, she wakes up. I mean, she's an actress, so she can pull this stuff off, man. And then so he's trying to make excuses of why he did what he did, and of course she's playing along, but she knows he's a bad guy. She knows something's wrong with this whole situation, but she doesn't know what it is yet or what his purposes are, but she knows something's up, and so she's playing along with him. He's like kissing on her and whatnot. He gets her some like lingerie and shit, and so he's gonna get her to change into it. And then she's like, "Oh, I need some help unzipping my dress." And then she smashes him over the head. Again, she smashes someone over the head, but with the vase, he gets knocked out temporarily. She sneaks off, and then she sees Lothar sitting alone, and I don't know what's like. Is that like Neville's study or something? And did he just like sit around waiting to do hench work or something?
Yeah, it's something like that. I have no idea what it is.
He doesn't have anything else to do. He's just sitting there waiting for Neville to give him the signal or something. I just imagine him here sitting in there all day, twiddling his thumbs until he gives him something to do. He doesn't eat. He doesn't sleep. He just waits. He's like a machine. Anyway, not to get too off topic here. So Jenny sneaks off to that bookcase that she saw Neville emerge from, and she figures out how to open it up. She finds the secret room. She sees a radio, and she's going to go to a call for help. And then she realizes that there's like a foreign voice speaking to her on the other end. And then she looks around. She finds out it's a secret. Dun, dun, dun. What is it?
A Nazi room.
It's a Nazi room. She finds out that Neville is a Nazi. I mean... You okay with her?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so she finds out that he's working for the Nazis. So everything's making sense now. Like, it's like there was something shady going on, and now it's being confirmed. Unfortunately, as she's coming to this realization, and she's like, Neville's and then Neville and Lothar pop up right behind her, and she's like, a what? A saboteur? A spy? What does he say? A fascist?
Fascist.
Yeah. And he confirms, what she just had seen with her own eyes. And they end up, obviously, I don't know, did they knock her out again or something? I forget or did they just kidnap her again? I don't know.
I have no idea, but they probably kidnapped her again.
I mean, she's in his house, so she's already kidnapped still, but I don't know. But she screams and whatnot. Anyway, we cut to Cliff. I think he goes back for Peavy. He realizes that he's gone. The only one that's there at the diner is that little girl. I forget her name. But then that's when he gets captured by the feds. They take him back to meet up with Howard Hughes, and that's when Howard reveals what's so important about this rocket pack and why they need it back. Cliff hid the pack though, and he's not willing to give it up because that's when he got like the ultimatum from the mobsters saying that we need the pack. You're gonna meet us at Griffith Observatory in exchange for the girl. We're gonna give you the girl if you give us the pack. And if you try anything funny, the girl's gonna be dead. So, he needs that pack. He can't give it up to the feds yet. He can't get them involved, or else it means curtains for Jenny. So, he gets taken over to Howard Hughes, and Howard is explaining the importance of this because he's like, this is just bigger than what's going on with you. And so he shows him that creepy video. They did it so well too. That video of the Nazi plan for the rocket pack, and I thought that was cool. Did you like that?
Oh yeah, it was very, very good.
Yeah, they made it look
well done.
Yeah,
very authentic. Just awesome and creepy.
Yeah, they did a good job with it, and it looked like a cartoon from back in that time. It showed the Nazi plan for world domination. First, they're going to take over Europe, and they're going to fly using a whole army of rocket men. They're going to fly across the world, destroying nations and taking over. And you see them, burning the Capitol, and you see like an American eagle melt into the Nazi German eagle thing with holding a swastika. It's crazy. And at the end, it says like, it's in German. I think from what I remember, I think it says like first Europe, then the world, or something like that. So the plans for world domination are relying on this rocket pack. So Howard Hughes is like, this film that we snuck out of Germany cost someone their life. So I hope you know the importance of this. And this is a big situation we got going on here. So we need that pack. And he's like, no, not yet. I need to get Jenny out. They're going to kill her if I don't bring it. So he
is worried.
Yeah. So he punches his way out of the situation. He sees there's a model of the spruce goose in a hangar. And so he jumps onto it, and the feds are going to open fire, but he's like, no weapons. And then so he glides away on the spruce goose and makes his way out. And then Howard Hughes is just so impressed with his work. He's like, the son of a bitch will fly. But yeah, eventually Cliff makes it to the pack, and he goes to do the exchange for Jenny. But yeah, and this is where everything culminates. So they meet up with I love it as a set piece where they go to the Griffith Observatory, and they actually film there too, so it's great. But they go to the Griffith Observatory, and then they go to meet up to swap, Jenny for the pack. Of course, Valentine and his gang are there, and then oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, but that when he met with Howard Hughes, that's when he realized that Neville Sinclair was a Nazi, because he's like, our intrepid G-men have been trying to figure out who, there's like a Nazi spy circling around, and we're trying to figure it out, but we think it's someone prominent in Hollywood. And then Cliff puts two and two together because he's seen Neville working with Valentine, and he's like, it's Neville Sinclair. And at first they didn't want to believe him, but he's like, it makes sense because I've seen him working together and whatnot. So he puts two and two together, and he goes to meet up with Valentine and Sinclair, to swap the pack for Jenny. And then he tells Valentine that Neville's a stinking Nazi, and Eddie Valentine, he's disgusted at the fact, and so it causes trouble for everybody. And then Valentine's like, I don't work for no 2-bit Nazis. I may not earn an honest living, but I'm 100% American. And so he turns on Neville Sinclair, which he wasn't too hot on Neville from the beginning, because he didn't know what the frick he was doing, wanting a rocket pack. But I guess now it makes sense to him. And then so he turned against him, and then his men hold Neville at gunpoint. But then Neville calls out the Nazi brigade, and a bunch of Germans pop up out of the bushes. It's chaos, and then the feds show up, and then all this gunfire and mayhem and whatnot. And in the midst of it all, Cliff gets a hold of the rocket pack. And then, of course, like I mentioned, which was foreshadowed earlier, we have the Zeppelin that we saw in the the newsreel earlier when Jenny and Cliff went to see that movie. It showed a Zeppelin. It's not the Hindenburg, but it's I forget the name of the Zeppelin that's featured in this movie, but it's a different Zeppelin, but it's very similar to the Hindenburg. It shows up at the end of the movie to take Neville Sinclair back to Germany, I'm supposing, with the rocket pack. And then just before everything goes down, or while everything's going down, when the gunfire is going, Cliff, he activates the rocket pack and then grabs a hold of one of the Nazis, sending him tumbling, and he makes away with the pack. And then Neville, he's still holding Jenny hostage, so he takes her up in the Zeppelin with her, and it's chaos. And they think that Neville got away, but then I love that scene where they see Cliff standing on top of Griffith Observatory. And he's like, no, he didn't get away, look. And you see him standing there amongst the American flag. Very, very patriotic, very iconic. He's holding the gun with him. I think he stole one of the Germans' guns. And he's standing there atop Griffith Observatory, ready to blast off. And he takes off, going up to the Zeppelin, which is very dangerous because that thing's filled with helium, as mentioned a couple times. So, and as we all know, with the Hindenburg, what happens when you mix fire and helium? But he makes it up to the top of the Zeppelin, sneaking up there, and then there's that funny battle with Lothar. He's on top of the Zeppelin as well. He's like strapped with like a metal rope or something like that. He's like fighting him with a wrench, and then Cliff, he like flies around and knocks Lothar off of the Zeppelin, and he crashes through the compartment, knocking the pilot out of the Zeppelin. I thought that was hilarious. What did you think about that whole scene?
Oh, that was so hilarious. The movie has so much gravitas, action, anything that you can have. It's just awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. And then so there's something wrong with the Zeppelin, because they're having issues with it even before the pilot got knocked out. But then at one point, one of the other people running the Zeppelin, they're like, we're losing altitude, we must lose some weight. And there's like this guy, he reminds me of General Todt from Raiders of the Lost Ark. He kind of has a similar look. He has like the hat and glasses and whatnot. He's yelling at Neville the whole time, berating him in German. And then one point, I think he's mad because he doesn't have the pack with him. But he's like, we'll have the pack soon enough, because basically he's saying that, he has Jenny as bait, the pack will come to us. But he's just like yelling at him the whole time. And at one point he's like, you actor. And he gets pissed at him. And then one of the guys who's running the Zeppelin, he's like, we need to drop some weight, we're losing altitude. And then so he shoots the, I'll call him General Todt because I don't know his name, but he shoots General Todt, falls out of the Zeppelin. He's like, for the fatherland. I thought that was pretty funny. And then of course, Cliff, he makes it back to the cabin of the Zeppelin. They're waiting to do the trade, and he's wanting to do the trade off, for Jenny. Of course, he's very, Neville's very hesitant to do it because he knows Cliff always has some trick up his sleeve. So he wants him to slide over the rocket pack, and then as he's doing so, he cleverly takes the gum off of the bullet hole that was holding the gas in there. I thought that was so brilliant. He takes it off with his finger slowly, and then you can see the gas starting to leak out. And then eventually they get into a scuffle. And I don't know why, but Jenny decides she's going to fire a flare into the cabin of the very, very explosive Zeppelin.
Which I may add, it's very, very dangerous.
Yes, but maybe she didn't know. Maybe she didn't know about helium and science and whatnot. But she decided to fire a flare, and it started the whole cabin on fire. And so now it creates this tension, which is great for the scene and the movie and whatnot. It creates this tension, and they have to try and get out of this burning thing before it explodes. And then eventually Cliff explains that once the fire hits the canvas or whatever, I forget what he calls it. Once the fire hits the envelope, he's like, this whole thing's going to blow. We need to get out of here. But Neville, Neville, he has the rocket pack. So he's like, I'm out of here. See you later. But what he doesn't realize is that the thing is just leaking like a sieve. He takes off and he bids them adieu, and he starts on fire. And then he crashes to the ground in a flaming ball of Nazi. And I love that scene. He crashes into the sign. At the time, it was the Hollywoodland sign, but in very comedic fashion, he crashes into the land part, and he inevitably creates the streamlined Hollywood sign. What do you think about that? I thought that was hilarious as hell.
That was hilarious and groundbreaking and very, very fantastic.
It wasn't groundbreaking. It was sign breaking. There we go. But yeah, I thought that was fun. He crashes into the Hollywoodland sign, turns it into the Hollywood sign. It was perfect, very poetic.
Very poetic.
Yes, bringing us into the modern age of Hollywood. Anyway, so Jenny and Cliff. My mind is just not there today. Jenny and Cliff are left on the Zeppelin. They're trying to leave. Like I said, he explains to her that this thing's going to blow. We need to get out of here. So they're trying to figure out a way to get out. They're running along the top of the Zeppelin. And Lothar shows up. It turns out he's still alive. He's attached to the rope, and I guess he was just temporarily knocked unconscious. But he climbs up. He starts chasing him atop the Zeppelin. But luckily, he can only make it so far because they ran past the length of the leash that he's on, and so he gets stuck. And then meanwhile, behind him, the Zeppelin's exploding, and he gets enveloped in the flames. And then luckily, I don't know how Cliff thought he was going to get out of the situation, but luckily, PV's got his back because Alan Arkin is badass, and so he and Howard Hughes show up in a freaking auto gyro. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's like a weird combination of a helicopter and airplane that actually existed. I don't know. They show up. It's a little bit of a long shot here, but they show up in an auto gyro, throw down a ladder, and then Jenny and Cliff jump atop the ladder. And they're flown out to safety on the auto gyro. That is amazing. And you see the Zeppelin burning behind them, and in the Hollywood Hills, it's just glorious. I don't know. I think that was a great climactic ending to their story. Did you like it?
Very, very much.
Yes, it was amazing. I don't know. It's perfect. It's everyone got out. They saved the day. The rocket pack is no longer in enemy hands. It could have easily gone bad, but everything worked out in the end. And then later we see, they're back at the airfield and whatnot, and they're talking, and Howard Hughes shows up, commending Cliff for everything that he did, and eventually, he unveils that he gave him a new airplane, which I do love. Everything just comes full circle. It starts, with them unveiling their new airplane out of the hangar, and it ends with them getting a new one in return for saving the world. I think that's a good compensation. He gets his new plane. Everything comes full circle. They revealed that Howard gave him the GB2, and then I love that scene where Howard asks him, he's like, how did it feel flying that thing? Like a bat out of hell. And he's like, it's the closest thing I'll ever get to heaven, Mr. Hughes. And he looks at Jenny. He's like, well, maybe not. Because Jenny is his idea of heaven. I think he's realizing her importance. He realized through this whole deal, her importance to him and whatnot. It's just very poetic, this whole movie, But then it's funny because then later on, Jenny reveals that she snatched the plans that Lothar took from Peavy. She snatched them from Neville Sinclair's house, and she gave them back to Peavy. And it kind of almost sets up for like a bit of a sequel, because he could potentially build the rocket pack again if they wanted to do a Rocketeer 2, which unfortunately they never got to do. There's still rumors floating around that they plan on continuing it somehow, but slowly
in somewhat of a mystery.
In some form. But I feel like as the years go by, it's less and less likely. I was hoping for something, but now unfortunately Alan Arkin has passed away. We won't have Peavy back, but you never know.
We might have a CGI of Peavy.
CGI Peavy.
It's a memory.
A Peavy hologram.
It's the.
Yeah, that's true. They're always bringing. They're always
Peavy.
bringing back poor actors from
Or a flashback.
Yeah, they bring. Oh yeah, it's true. They're bringing back poor actors from the dead, so they can act again in their movies and without having to pay them. But yeah, you never know. Maybe Cliff Secord will return once more. You never know. But I don't think at this point, this far down the road, I don't think they'll be able to do a sequel that does it justice. So I think it's best to leave it alone at this. It's a great standalone movie. Joe Johnston did a great job. Wonderful cast. Just a solid flick, man. What do you think? What would you rate this movie, man?
I would rate this movie 9 out of 10.
Ooh, yes. Yeah,
and
definitely.
And of course, a 10 out of 10 also. So 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. And a 10.
10 out of 10.
Interesting. So that's almost like a 19 out of 10. Okay. Those are high marks. I would agree with you. I would say like a 9 out of 10 as well. It's a very solid movie. Didn't get enough appreciation in its time, but I think now people obviously have realized what a great movie it is, and I'm glad it got recognized as such because it's pretty damn good. All right, it's been fun watching this movie again. I thought it was appropriate. Like I said, it has very patriotic tones to it.
Very, very patriotic
it's also
tones.
A great
awesome.
A great way to pay tribute to the late Alan Arkin, who was great in this movie. Like I said, I love their their chemistry, Peavy and Cliff. They're just fun characters. In one of my favorite movies. All right. This wraps up this episode of The Men Who Watch Movies. My name is Alec.
And my name is DJ the Movie Man Wagner, also known as the COE, the Chairman of Entertainment of The Men Who Watch Movies.
Yes.
And we hope this video goes viral because we need a lot of views, so we need a wider audience. So please click the subscribe button and click the bell.
Definitely.
For more content.
Oh, yeah. Subscribe. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming up. You can check us out here on YouTube. We're also on Anchor. Well, that's not called Anchor anymore. It's just Spotify for podcasters. But yeah, we were on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We have an Instagram at Men Watch Movies. We have a Facebook at Men Watch Movies. We have a Twitter at Men Watch Movies. I simplified it for you guys so you can find us pretty easily. But we're available in a lot of places, man. So check us out and just tune in. Make sure to tune in. We're always posting stuff here and there. So
please tune in.
And if you like this episode, comment and say what you liked about it, or what you liked about this movie, and comment your tribute to Alan Arkin here, or even comment about how you thought we're total garbage. I don't know. It's a free country, man. It's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. So this has been a fun episode, and we want to remind you all to keep on watching.
Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.